Now, stay tuned, everybody, for our next fireside chat. I am turning over the reins to a fellow environmental advocate. She is the Southeast Asia Partnerships Manager and Philippines Country Head with Eco Business, APAC's largest sustainability media and ESG solutions platform. Let's give a warm round of applause to Miss Ping Manongdo.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Are you still with us this afternoon? Can I see a raise of hands? Very good. Thank you. We still have the room almost filled. And a pleasant afternoon. We've been hearing a lot about the net zero transition, and a lot of the conversations are also steered towards finance. So we all know that finance is a key lever to help countries transition to net zero and meet sustainable development targets that are crucially needed amid a volatile macroeconomic outlook and the triple planetary crisis that we are all facing. We've touched upon planet, pollution, and of course, nature. For this fireside chat, we turn our attention to funding climate action as businesses face the urgency to mitigate the effects or adapt to climate change. How do we fund this massive undertaking? And how much will this transition cost? Also, banks and regulatory frameworks need assurance that the finance that is needed for sustainable development and climate action is indeed not just a concept. So that's why this afternoon, we will also be tackling taxonomy. We'll be speaking with leaders in the financial sector on the intricacies surrounding the financing of mitigation and adaptation projects, divesting from coal, and how government incentives and regulation can help facilitate the shift. And like what we've been doing these previous sessions, we'd love to hear from you. So please go to Mentimeter.com or scan the QR code and key in the access code and participate in the discussion ahead. Please refer to the details being flashed on the screen to be able to access Mentimeter. Now it's time for us to meet our panelists. Our first panelist drives the execution of the BDO Sustainability Framework with policy formulations and programs across the BDO Group and produces the annual BDO Sustainability Report. She works closely with business groups and subsidiaries as subject matter expert and advisor to ensure the bank's alignment of its policies and practices with global standards, regulations, and guidelines on sustainability reporting. Let's welcome the Vice President and Head of Sustainability of BDO Unibank, Ms. Marla Garin Alvarez. Marla. Our next panelist is the Assistant Governor of the Policy and Specialized Supervision Subsector under the Financial Supervision Sector of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. She oversees the supervisory policy and data departments of the BSP, as well as the supervision of specialized areas, specifically money laundering, information technology, treasury, and trust operations. Let's all welcome Ms. Lynn Javier. Also joining us is the Vice President and Head of BPI Sustainability Office, which oversees the development, execution, and evaluation of ESG goals, policies, programs, and activities of BPI and its subsidiaries. Please welcome Ms. Joan Bueno Yala. Our last panelist is a Principal Investment Specialist and leads Asian Development Bank's private sector operations climate finance team. Prior to joining ADB, he provided climate finance services to major corporations, trading companies, international banks, the UN, national and regional governments, and nonprofit organizations. He worked with the ADB investment teams to catalyze the growth of thematic bonds and loans in Southeast Asia and Central West Asia. Please welcome Mr. Noble Peters. All right, so I've just been informed that just before we hop on to our panel discussion, Ms. Joan Ayala at BPI would like to do a quick presentation. The floor is yours, Joan.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we happen to have a couple of slides, and I said, might as well show it. No? So um, this is for the Sustainability Forum, just for today. Okay, so just as a background, no, we always look at environmental risks and challenges, and maybe we have to make sure this is placed as a backdrop. Well, this is very common to us, Filipinos, no, having seen so many typhoons, too many typhoons in a year. In fact, the count is an average of 20 to 24. Stronger, more frequent, and then add to that, well, that is because we're along the typhoon belt. Now add to that an average of around 20 earthquakes a day. Can you believe that? 20 earthquakes a day on the average, because there are days that we would have thousands of earthquakes, and sometimes you don't feel them because they're hundreds of kilometers underground. No? And then seawater level is expected to rise by 3.4 millimeters a year, and that's around 4 inches by 2050. So when you look at the social side, so that's the environmental side. On the social side, we have 18.1 Filipinos living below the poverty level, 6% below food poor, and around over 3 million Filipinos unemployed. Now, because we're talking ESG, so let's go to the G part. We're looking at continuously developing frameworks. No? And well, I'm seated beside our representative from the central bank here. And one thing we'd like to note, no, is that the sustainability, compliance, no, regulatory scenario has been so conducive to sustainability. Never have I seen it this sustainable. Thank you to the BSP, also the SEC, and then now even the BSP. No? And this aims to align, no, with sustainability standards globally. Of course, sustainability reporting is also espoused by the SEC through this sustainability reporting requirement. And there is, on top of 1085 of the central bank, there's 1128, no, which is related to environmental and social risk management. Okay, but always I say this, no, we compete for the gold, no, every so often, but this one is gold in terms of having the most expensive electricity in the region. No, how sad, no, how painful. Sometimes you win the gold, sometimes you get the silver medal, but that's hard, no, because when imported produce, no, products reach the Philippines, sometimes they're even cheaper than those which are produced locally, and this is because we have among the most expensive electricity in the region. Now, as mentioned earlier, unfortunately, while we have those pains, no, we also have a very conducive environment now for sustainability. You can see there BSP 1085, BSP 1128, and then 1149, no, which already integrates various sustainability principles. So what does this mean? It means that being sustainable has become even more and more beneficial to us, to business decision makers, big or small. Because now you can talk about, I'm also being compliant just by being sustainable. So, well, in BPI, the box on the right, no, we've had a sustainability agenda approved by our board. It is also being implemented by our council, which meets every quarter. We have a risk management team, which ensures that environmental and social risk assessment is being done. By the way, you can see there the third bullet, it talks about environmental risk assessment. Something I will not detail, but please note, the name of the system is Hazard Hunter. Free, online, pull out your phones, type in your address, your home address or your business location, and check if you are vulnerable to seismic or earthquakes, ground shaking, etc., or flooding. No? Any climate-related risks as well as volcanic risks. We've done that across all our clients, corporate and individuals, and we've done it across our employees, our branches as well. So if you tell me now, employee number X, how vulnerable is he? I'll tell you, because we have them all mapped out. What's the value? Again, we are along the Pacific Ring of Fire in the typhoon belt, so it's very good that we know. And those of you, you're here, no? Your sustainability consciousness is at its highest. So please be aware that we're not only talking of our impact on the environment. The environment has its own way of getting back at us. No? So we better know how risky our locations are. So that's Hazard Hunter for you. Now, in BPI, we've also done our mandatory. You know what we did? Because we have a sustainability agenda, and this one I want to share. It's hard if it's concentrated at the top, we happen to have seniors who are very, very supportive of sustainability. Fortunately, we have a Jaime Augusto Sebel de Ayala who's been doing this since 1987. So it's natural for the rest of the Ayala group. I'm sure you've heard of the Ayala speakers earlier. It's natural for the group to have sustainability in their DNA. But it's different if it's concentrated on the top. So again, another tip is make the whole organization committed. No, make them aware, make them realize the importance, and then let them be committed. And then your jobs as sustainability advocates in the organization becomes a lot easier. And then, of course, there are certain standards. There are certain initiatives that you can take part in. There's TCFD, there's Net Zero, etc., that you can learn from. So this is what we do in BPI. We do follow, guided by responsible banking and then responsible operations. So products and services are evaluated with a sustainability lens. We're very conscious of financial inclusion. That's a topic our chairman would call on a Sunday afternoon to talk about. And well, as we all know, we all have our own way of contributing to nation building.
Joanne, pardon me for my intrusion, but I'm just conscious of the time we have and a lot of questions that we can
I'll wrap it
still
up.
tackle.
Yes,
All right,
okay,
thank you for
sorry,
maybe
okay.
wrapping it up.
Yes. All right. So just one more thing. This is one big lesson that I'd like to share, and that would be, it is not enough that you think of doing green. No, make sure that you make money out of it. Make sure that you are not looking at projects that are making money. The formula is not just ESG, but also to have economic benefits. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for staying engaged with us as you enjoy your snack in your tables. But let's get straight to the responses that has been perhaps begging from the finance sector. Earl Ferlales, for example, at Kubo Modular mentioned that finance is seemingly inaccessible or hard to find or is wanting for us to scale the sustainable development solutions that entrepreneurs are forwarding or businesses are forwarding. Is there a myth to be debunked here? Is finance limited? Is finance inaccessible? I'll give the floor to Noel first for your sweet and short and sharp response. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Maybe not super short because I just want to set the scene. ADB is now calling itself Asia and Pacific's Climate Bank. We've elevated our climate finance ambition from 2019 to 2030 to $100 billion. $12 billion of that for the private sector and crowding in $18 billion to $30 billion of other financial investments from the private sector. So we really want to invest in climate. It's our number one priority. So the finance is there, but we need the projects. We need a pipeline of bankable projects, and that's, I think, our biggest challenge.
Thank you. John, please.
So the question is it a myth, whether finance is available to SMEs? Actually, it shouldn't.
Actually, the question is it a myth that finance is not available?
Not available,
Is there
yes.
a myth to be debunked here?
Yes. The truth is, well, in our case, we have a dedicated team for SMEs because it is, and MSMEs because it is that sector that actually lacks support. The bigger ones, bigger companies have their own engineering teams. MSMEs, SMEs, they need to be guided. They need to be taught how to make sure that their ESG initiatives are actually technically successful and therefore making money. Thank you.
Ms. Lin, is there any policy regulation perhaps supportive of, I'm sure, a sustainable finance framework from BSP, supportive of funding sustainable solutions?
Yeah, I think finance is available. It's basically, we just have to bridge understanding. On the part of the MSME and how to properly package these borrowings, and on the part of the bank to understand the risks attended to these projects. Now, the BSP has provided relief to banks to incentivize lending to MSMEs during the pandemic, and we've extended it until June 2023. Another one is, I think this is a potential game changer. The Agri-Agra mandatory credit, which requires 25% of loanable funds, we now recognize ESG-related projects and financings as eligible mode compliance with that mandatory credit requirement. So that would definitely unlock financing to this in this space.
Thank you. Marla, your take?
Yes, thank you. I would say it's a myth, and that's because on BDO's part, on the extremes of the spectrum of all our clients, from micro, small, medium enterprises to large companies. We have been providing sustainable financing. So for example, in terms of renewable energy, energy efficiency projects, and green buildings, we've been doing this since 2010 with our Sustainable Energy Finance Program set up with the International Finance Corporation. And to date, as of last year, we have 54 renewable energy projects across the whole country in geothermal, hydro, wind, solar, and biomass. So we also have BDO Network Bank, whose target audience is really the MSMEs. And they provide business loans. They also provide salary loans for government employees such as teachers. So I would say the financing is there, particularly for renewable energy. We just need, as Noel said, we just need the projects.
Amazing. That's very heartening to know. And if you ever caught that and you're an MSME or you're also looking for finance, then our finance sector is ready to start the conversation with you. I come back to you, Marla. We were privileged at EcoBusiness that you chose the platform to announce the energy transition mechanism of BDO, which says that you will halve your coal investments or exposure by 2033 and limit it to just 2% of your portfolio. Could you walk us through the journey? What immediate next steps have you taken since making that public announcement?
So thank you for that, Ping. So our energy transition finance statement is really a declaration of our approach in terms of financing the transition. So that's very clear. We have stopped financing coal-fired power plants since 2019, and as you mentioned, in terms of divestment, we have our commitment for 2033. At the same time, we will continue to invest in more renewable energy projects, and we are actively soliciting, actively looking at a lot of potential REs. Now, part of the declaration is also our approach to a just transition. And this means we are also declaring that we will provide access to capital to our customers who will be transitioning their businesses from coal-fired power plants into more renewable energy sources, and we can provide access to capital for them to avail of technology that can do that. Like for example, do you know that Japan has discovered this technology where if you co-fire 20% ammonia with coal, then it produces greenhouse gas emissions that is equivalent to the emissions of natural gas. So it considerably lowers the greenhouse gas emissions by 50 to 60%. So that's an example of an innovation or technology that can be availed. So we will not leave our customers behind, basically. And part of that just transition also is access to finance to communities and individuals which will be affected by the transition. So this might be in the form of loss of jobs, livelihood, opportunities. So BDO is there, again, with BDO Network Bank and the Unibank to provide access to capital to help these communities transition as well.
I'm always thrilled to be on the right side of history because we're watching the transformation of economies from fossil-based to renewable energy-based, right? So we are in this together, in this journey together, and it's just wonderful to witness it. You mentioned the keyword, Marla, on innovation, and this is a question for everyone in this session. So our regional experts are saying that in the next 10 to 15 years, traditional financial products will be phased out and will be totally replaced with sustainable finance products, because if banks do not offer these products, they will be called out by their stakeholders. What are your individual banks doing to promote more innovative, sustainable finance products? Noel.
Actually, I wasn't going to answer that question. I was just going to point out that I think in 15 years' time, they won't be called sustainable finance products. It'll be mainstreamed. So all finance products will be sustainable, but that's the future.
That's absolutely the point. And to that point, and thank you for emphasizing it, what is ADB doing now to pave the way for mainstreaming sustainable finance products?
Oh, perhaps some of you here might know that we helped Aboitiz issue the first climate bond in Asia Pacific, and it was the first peso-denominated bond that BDO invested in. So we actually helped them through that pathway, and we've done that with other corporates throughout Southeast Asia. So we like to partner with our borrowers to just show them that it's not a difficult thing to do. We have a blue bond incubator where we will actually support a bank to issue its first blue bond. So that's just a small indication of the things that we do. We also, we provide guarantees and B loans, which is where banks lend through ADB to help catalyse climate finance.
Thank you. Joanne, would you like to?
Yes. ADB, in fact, guided us in shortening the life of a coal plant. Maybe I should say that first, Noel. So there is a huge coal plant whose life was supposed to end in 2055. It has been shortened to 2040, guided by technical expertise from ADB. Of course, related to coal, we'll be zeroing out our coal portfolio by 2032. SME finance, we've done 371 projects, 220 billion worth. Bulk are in energy efficiency, specifically because electricity is very expensive in the Philippines. So 371, more than half energy efficiency, over 100 in renewables, over 100 in green buildings. So, and then now we also have help for MSMEs, especially the underbanked, the underserved. There is a big market at the bottom, which normally is ignored by banks because it's hard to make money out of them. So what happens is you just need technology, you just need systems to help them out, and then make banking services accessible via mobile services. So yeah, fortunately, because of the pandemic, people have shifted from traditional to digital. 91% of our transactions now are going through our digital platforms, and that has become even, therefore, the digital platforms have become even more accessible to the grassroots. And just to end this, maybe it's good to note that our lowest loan before for the grassroots was 75,000 pesos. Now it's down to 10,000 pesos. Can you believe? So that's how much in dollars? Less than $200 to borrow. I guess that's what's needed, especially now, post-pandemic, towards our recovery. Thank you.
Yeah, in the case of the BSP, promoting responsible and responsive innovation, sustainable finance, and greater inclusivity are actually interrelated objectives. For the BSP, we have promoted digitalization. We've actually targeted converting 70% of retail payments to digital platforms. And 50% of digital payments to digital platform. Based on the 2021 survey, we are now at 30%. And we are also targeting to have 70% of Filipino adults with transaction accounts. Again, based on the latest survey, we are now at 56%. This just shows that digitalization is actually an enabler in terms of reaching the unbanked and unserved sector. But looking closely at the financial inclusion data, the ABC classes have doubled the number of accounts than the DE classes. So we have to close that disparity gap. When we are able to close that through digitalization, then we could definitely say that no one is left behind in the sustainability agenda.
Let me approach it from a different perspective. Ours is not so much as phasing out products as evolving them. So it's continuous improvement leading to innovation, which means the products that we have now, we're looking at them in terms of their ESG impact, ENS impact, and whether these are positive or negative, high or low. We are mapping them against the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, each of our products and services, so that we can really see if we are supporting the SDGs and specific targets under the SDGs. Because that's really how you measure impact, if you are really, if you're really supporting a particular target. So we are doing that review, and we see innovation as providing a new aspect to it. Like for example, some of our earlier speakers have talked about solar panels on their homes, right? For households and for buildings. So that can actually fall under a house improvement loan, which is already in existence. So how do you innovate that? Then you include solar panel systems as a particular aspect that can be part of that criteria. And at the same time, you enable it by working with the ecosystem, meaning, for example, solar power providers, so that they can provide better packages so people can avail of it. And by then, you multiply and scale the impact by being able to support microgrids in all our 7,000, 1,000, 2,000 islands, right? So that you're no longer just dependent on the distribution of power, but you can generate your own power in your households, you can generate power for your businesses, and that's all by availing of a loan that's already in existence with BDO.
Amazing. Very, very inspiring to know that you're looking at the broad spectrum of how finances can be deployed to be able to help everyone, all stakeholders, transition. Yes, Noel, please.
Yeah, I just forgot to mention two other things. The first is that we have access to concessional funds, and for projects that wouldn't otherwise be funded, where it can be demonstrated that the concessional funding will help enable the project actually be developed when it wouldn't be otherwise, then we can draw on those to provide lower cost financing. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that we've established ADB Ventures. So ADB Ventures is focused on climate and gender, and so it's to help startups, early phase startups, develop their ideas. I just wanted to add those two extra things. Thank you.
That's great to know. So I hope this session is becoming informative for everyone looking to find financial options for your innovative and sustainable development solutions or technologies. But as we are speaking about options being already available, let's enter the world of taxonomy. As you know, there's already the ASEAN taxonomy that is being developed more to protect as well the industry from, greenwashing of sustainable finance. But let me just highlight the statistics here. Asia's sustainable economy is set to reach US $5 trillion by 2030, according to McKinsey. And this is a wealth of opportunity. But of course, as I mentioned, we need governments and regulatory leaders to assure that it is not just a concept. There's a shared tool that we can all refer to. What is our current approach at establishing a taxonomy? I guess Ms. Lin would be in a best position to answer this, but later on, everybody else can weigh in.
Yeah, the taxonomy would definitely unlock financing to sustainable projects. Now, the BSP, along with other financial sector agencies, under the auspices of the Financial Sector Forum, now that includes PDIC, the Insurance Commission, and the Securities and Exchange Corporation, are developing a taxonomy. We are guided by the guiding principles issued by the Green Force. It's an interagency body that also developed the Sustainable Finance Roadmap for the country and the guiding principles which identified activities or sectors that are actually green or not green. And we will also draw from the ASEAN Taxonomy version 1. Now, the development of taxonomy is very crucial. The approach that we're taking is that it should be principles-based to allow entities or corporations to adjust along with our progress in terms of adopting the sustainability agenda. And second, it has to be interoperable. We cannot just develop our own taxonomy and then other countries or potential investors do not actually understand it. So that's the approach being taken by regulators.
Wonderful. Anybody else would like to weigh in? Yes, Noel.
Yeah, so we're helping support the ASEAN +3 taxonomy. There's an awful lot of taxonomies out there, and I think it's quite confusing for people. But they all tend to do the same thing and say the same thing. And I think it's really important that the Philippines has a tool that works for Philippines, and that people who need to apply their taxonomy just go there. It is right now a very complex and moving field, and I kind of envy someone who's moving into this area to actually navigate it, and I guess that's where we like to help.
Thanks very much. I'm just having my eye on our box here that is exploding with some questions from our audience. Thank you for engaging with us. So I'll read out question number 1. While there are incentives to lending for MSMEs, what are the challenges to investing in climate initiatives or projects? Example, sustainable sugar farming or seed farming. So I guess the question is about breaking the barrier to entry so that more funds can flow towards projects such as this one highlighted. How do you make it more accessible to farmers or specific groups that are forwarding these technologies or initiatives?
Well, okay. Yeah, maybe I'll just take it. We have an agri-dedicated team in the first place, and as mentioned earlier, we're looking at farmers and fishermen. That's why we brought the borrowing, minimum borrowing level to 10,000 pesos only. Other than that, we do have a lot of all of these capacity building, training sessions, of course, done in Tagalog, done in the countryside. No? Fortunately, we have help also from guarantors such as USAID in the past, although that expired already. So yeah, thank you, ADB, if you have some more funds. Because really, once you open it up and you tell the fishermen, farmers, that you have something that would help them, they eat it up right away. Now, what is key is this, no? As a bank, it comes with a responsibility in telling them that, this is not giveaway money. You don't run away with it. You have to study this very well, and you have to make money out of it. You have to do it right, and you have to be a very responsible borrower. No? So all of these values, other than the technical advice, have to be put in place.
Sure, thank you. It's really important to de-risk your investments as well. Yes, Noel.
Yeah, we also have an agribusiness team, and what they've been doing is lending to the larger agricultural companies, but working with them to reach out to the smallholder farmers that form their value chain, and develop smart agricultural practices, and training, better methods, better use of pesticides. So that's been our approach to try and reach the smallholder farmer. Which is where an awful lot of these large agricultural firms get their product from.
All right, wonderful.
So in BDO's case, it's really our financial inclusion initiatives throughout the bank, Unibank, and its subsidiaries, particularly BDO Network Bank. At the same time, while there are existing financial products and services, we are also very active in terms of financial literacy programs. So, for example, we started by embedding financial literacy in the K-12 curriculum, working with the BSP and DepEd. So it's now part of different subjects under K-12. And we were able to scale that to include other sectors, including farmers and fisher folk. Recently, we even developed a board game for fisher folk so that they can better understand how to manage their finances, how to scale their livelihood, and how to avail of financial services and make it work for them. And it's part of a continuing education series, so that it's not just one time, but you continue to reinforce it with the relationship with them as they open their accounts, as they manage their finances.
Ms. Ping, just quickly on this, if I could just share 2 initiatives of the BSP to promote financing. Apart from the incentives, we have just recently issued the standard business loan application form for MSME. So this is a standard document that would facilitate, again, understanding of the terms and conditions of borrowings for MSMEs. The second one is the credit risk database, which we are, for MSMEs again with partnership, BSP is in partnership with the JICA on this one.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I guess that covers question number 2 here as well, or perhaps touches upon it. If there is a way for certain loans to have ease of approval, for example, for EVs or sustainable homes. Anyone else would like to mention particular products that you have on EVs and sustainable homes, or maybe solarized homes?
Yes, we do. We like the electric vehicles now. There are not that many yet, and the charging stations are not all over the country yet. So count-wise, we're not expecting a lot, but we do encourage them. And then we also have low-cost housing packages, easy terms, no, easier terms. You'll see that launch. It's called My Bahay, 3 million and below loans. And we also have special installment packages for solar on the roof. And mind you, because always we believe, no, that as we help ESG initiatives be executed and done properly, we want to make sure that they're profitable. So we vet the solar providers. We make sure that they really can help you, because some may be a little too aggressive and they claim to be able to do it, but we're vetting them for you, so that when we mention that, you know, this particular list has had successful projects in the Philippines, you can rest assured that they've been properly studied, you know, before entering the list.
Marlon, you wanted to weigh in.
Yes, this is a growing field, so to speak, for us as well, not a lot yet. But just to emphasize that just because a product or a service is said to be renewable, or it's an electric vehicle or a sustainable home, doesn't mean it's easier to approve, because we do have to ensure that we do the same due diligence in terms of the environmental impact and social impact of such projects. Even harder actually, to really ensure that it is delivering on what it is promising. So that's an additional challenge. So maybe not ease of approval, but you can be sure that there will be capacity building that's included there to educate the person who will avail of the loan or who will look at a development to ensure that it's really a sustainable housing development, for example.
What we're getting is that if you're clear with the ESG considerations of your loan application, then these banks are ready to speak with you. I come to Ms. Javier. Ms. Lynn, tell us about the BSP Circular number 1149. I understand it was issued on August 3rd, 2022. So how does this align with BSP's three-part sustainability agenda?
Okay, it's a three-phase approach in terms of issuing regulations. The first one is establish corporate governance requirements. The tone from the top is very important in terms of introducing these new policies coming from the BSP. So we leverage on existing corporate governance and risk management guidelines. The second phase involves specific or more granular risk management expectations. So we have circular number 1128 on credit and operational risk, and 1158 on investment management activities of banks. Basically, we're saying that banks should set risk appetite in terms of their investment activities, and their investment should be aligned with the sustainability agenda. And they should also have an exit mechanism if they find out that, again, this is not aligned with the green or what's green. Now, this would be followed by stress testing guidelines and of course, the taxonomy. The third phase now would be the incentives. We hope we could come up with prudential incentives. We're also aligning ourselves with the issuance of international standard setting bodies. But we're now looking at certain areas that we could probably explore and issue.
I see how regulations such as this would really make the Philippines an attractive destination for foreign investors as well. And on that note, we know that there was a policy signal lifting the limit on foreign investors into the renewable energy space. Do we actually need more investors, or are local banks, or banks in the Philippines have enough capacity to fund renewable energy projects?
Okay. Okay. We have a big appetite for renewables, and that is because we know we're all killing coal. I mean, maybe I can put it that way, especially this is a WW event. I'm sure they're smiling. So, but as we kill coal, we have to note that coal accounts for 58% of the total energy mix of the country. So it is important that as coal goes down, renewable energy goes up, and that intersection happens at an earlier stage. Year, because if it's delayed in any way, we're going to have rotating brownouts, which we cannot afford, especially as we try to recover out of this dual crisis. So appetite-wise, we do have a lot. Now, why would I therefore be in favor of foreign investors coming in? Because we still lack project owners and those with capability to actually develop beyond solar, floating solar, geothermal, for instance, which takes a lot of capital, a lot of investment, a lot of technical expertise. We don't have ocean. We have one of the longest coastline in the world, second in the world, but how much? We don't have ocean at all. In fact, offshore wind we don't have. We only have onshore wind. So there is a lot of space. There's so much need in the country such that, you know, come on, foreign investors, come in. We do need you, and we want to fill up that gap, that 58% gap. Thank you.
Noel, did you have thoughts to share on that? Foreign investors coming to the Philippines and developing REs, and how ADB could be working on? If
I thought the question was for local banks, but nonetheless, there's an awful lot that needs to be done. There's an awful lot of infrastructure, as you've heard earlier today, that needs to be put in place to develop renewables. We currently don't have the grid. Look, you need to throw everything at this. It's not one or the other. That 5 trillion figure is huge, and to actually mobilise that much money in that time is just technically difficult with the current capacity that we have. So that's the answer. Everything has to be on the table.
would you agree, Ms. Marla?
Just to add to that, I think it's really just in the messaging of that development. It reinforces your first question, whether it's a myth that there's money out there locally. So as Noel said, it should be both. So there is local financing from the private sector that's available, and banks would want to finance that. And then there are also projects like wind farms, for example, which are so expensive that at times you would even need a consortium of banks to really finance that. So in that sense, we do welcome that. So it's more in communicating the intent and the strategy, particularly for the country, for the Philippines, right? In saying that, okay, we're opening 100% ownership of foreign capital so that, you know, you can invest in us. It shouldn't be at the expense of local banks being able to do that as well.
Thank you. That really clarifies. Now, we turn to last question here before we perhaps have a wrap up with my eye on the time. For all panelists, can you please share your thoughts on the reality that with the difference between plain vanilla bonds and green bonds? Is there really no interest rates difference between these two products?
I can start. We are seeing in different markets that there is a price difference appearing. But I think that's only one factor, right? And so I've been involved in this area since 2011. So when I was working on them then, compared the size of the market then compared to the size of the market now is just unbelievable, right? So there is obviously interest in this. There's huge interest in this, and it goes further than just the price. It's also about you know, a corporate wanting to demonstrate that it is genuine, about green. It's about changing the entire dialogue. It's about them showing their shareholders that are interested to see that they're you know, that they're going green and they're focused on climate. It's great for reputation. They tend to be well oversubscribed. So there's you know, it's not just the price. That's my only comment, and it'd be great to hear from the others who actually issue them locally. Yep.
I would agree with that. It's not just the price. It's really more on where is the money going? What are the projects that are being funded by these green bonds? Or blue bonds for that matter. BDO issued the country's, well, Southeast Asia's first blue bond in May 2022, and that will go to predetermined projects related to water and wastewater management. And in our pipeline, we do have the offshore wind renewable energy. So wind at sea, a wind power plant at sea. So there is a lot of opportunity there in terms of really making a huge impact. I think looking at just the interest rates is a narrow point of view, but you should really look at the whole impact and the whole purpose for a green bond or a sustainability bond, or a blue bond, or a sustainability-linked bond, which has to deliver positive environmental impact and positive social impact as well.
We got to give it to Ms. Marla for really staunchly supporting and protecting that. But that is really good signal for us, and it makes us very investable. Ms. Dean Javier, would you like to
No,
weigh in?
on the part of the regulators, again, price is just one factor, but what we did was to streamline the issuance of bonds, at least for the banking industry, and provided incentives as well, like reducing the reserve requirement. Now, on the part of the investors, as I mentioned, if you're a bank investing in this type of bonds, you could use that as a form of compliance with the Agri-Agri requirement, and that reduces potential penalty imposition on the banks.
Absolutely right. I guess we can have 1 minute, a quick wrap up just before we conclude our session. There's really lots to unpack here, and really it's an exciting topic to pursue. But what do you think would be the next biggest opportunities in the finance sector for the Philippines? Just your parting shots. I'll start with Marla.
Well, sustainable finance, I think, is still at an infancy stage in the country, so there's still a lot more that needs to be done, a lot more where we need to invest to really see the change that we want. And I would, again, talk about water and wastewater management, because we're not doing enough. We're not investing in enough projects around that. The other week, we were just reviewing with our waste management technical working group, the facilities and branches of BDO, where there are areas in the Philippines where there is water stress, where there is difficulty in acquiring or providing a water supply. And when we looked at the map, it was mostly brown, if you can imagine, not a lot of green places, which means that Metro Manila, for example, was very brown, Calabarzon was very brown. So there's already huge water stress there. But what are the projects that we have, or what are the projects in the pipeline that will address this? We haven't even heard of a water crisis, really. And it's just one of the many impacts of climate change that we need to address.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn, where's the next big sustainable finance opportunity for the country?
No, actually, before we go to that next big sustainable finance opportunity for the country, we have to, joint efforts in terms of promoting awareness and capacitating also all stakeholders. Because we cannot just focus on, say, transitioning to RE or EE and leave the MSMEs behind. So before we could actually grab those opportunities, we have to strengthen our foundation in terms of understanding the risk and taking advantage of these opportunities.
Yes, echoing that, no, we have been advancing in a big way, well, not very, very big way yet, but leading the sustainability initiatives of the country, the larger companies, bringing up to speed SMEs and MSMEs, especially those at the bottom. We're talking of fisher folks and farmers. No? We need to bring them up. In terms of, so that's making it accessible to them. I mean, ESG-related financing, but also educating them at the same time so that they do it right, and they do it not just to be able to say it, but to really do it and commit to it and really have impact. Not only to the environment, but also to themselves. You see, that's one thing that we always espouse. ESG will not live on its own if it does not have financial, economic benefits to the project proponents. And that's one very important message that we always say. Do not look at profitability as a sin. In fact, you cannot stop with being green or blue. You have to make money, you have to be profitable for that ESG initiative to be truly sustainable.
So I think what we've been talking about today is still the big opportunity, the first big opportunity unrealized. But what I'd really like to see is we've been working hard in ADB to work out how to scale up private sector investment in adaptation and resilience. I see Blue Oceans Finance as one really big opportunity, but trying to find nature-based solutions in the Philippines. There's probably no better country to achieve that. Don't know how to do it, but that's an opportunity that could really have a tremendous impact on the Philippines.
Thank you very much. Inspiring and informative. Thank you for indulging in my questions. And that concludes our fireside chat. Thank you so much for your time, and a big hand for our panelists, Ms. Marla Alvarez, Ms. Lynn Javier, Ms. Joan Bueno Ayala, and Mr. Noel Peters. We're all invited to have a snapshot